And we are live. Welcome to the Engineering Unplugged podcast. We have Swannand Pugnis today. Swannand is an amazing technician that I know. He has contributed a lot to the Ruby conference in Bangalore. He was an instrumental member in building that community and driving it for a couple of years. He is an ex-CTO at CoLearn, and he's currently building 100x engineers. How are you doing today? Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Bhavin. Good morning. You're doing great. Thanks for the intro. A couple of years, if 10 years counted a couple of years, then yeah, I have been building the Ruby community. It's been a parallel track in my career. Like there's a work track everybody has where you work at places, you do things, and you sort of build an identity around that. And then there's like other parallel things you do, right? And then that parallel thing has been the community activities for me, whether it's like the meetups, conferences, building and mentoring people, all of that. And I think it sort of shaped out quite well. And the open source ethos has been behind all the meetups all along. Uh, and in the early days, like nerds and geeks coming together and hanging out was like a natural thing. Right now, it's a little bit hard, a little more artificial, and things are not as smooth and organic as they used to be. But I think still, like there's a lot of efforts. I can see like a lot of efforts being taken by different communities, Python, Ruby, JavaScript, who try to get people to come together and have conversations. In some ways, this podcast is also similar to that, right? People like in this case, two people coming together and having a good, deep discussion. And so meetups have played a big role for me personally, and I'll be like forever grateful.
It's very inspirational to see the kind of history that you have had and your contributions. Glad to have you here once again. So, to kick off the podcast, what has been an instrumental challenge that you have faced in your career, which now defines you as a professional?
I've had a few throughout my career, and like in the early days, obviously it was being dropped into teams that were really good, and then finding myself not equipped enough to deliver the same quality with the peers, being a fast learner and keeping up with the pace, keeping up with so many different new things that I never learned in college, etc. That was my early career. But as I sort of started progressing and becoming more confident of who I am and what I can do, and started getting an idea about how my career trajectory is going to be, the biggest problem I faced was how do I go and work on something meaningful, something that stretches my abilities a little bit? How do I master harder things faster? And how do I deliver something of quality? That either to build reputation, or a business value. There are a bunch of artificial reasons I felt that that could justify what I'm doing, but there was always like a intrinsic desire. Okay, I want to do really good, and like I want to feel good about that, and also I want to be like maybe known about that, whatever, like build a reputation, all that, right? And
Right.
so doing like deep focused work and the craftsmanship and mastery that comes along with it became like a challenge to me, and it also became like an opportunity. I was in a remote setup back in around 2014, 2015, in that time, and just so happened that all my teammates were in a different time zone than me. They were all in the American time zones, and I was in the Indian time zone. And I would wake up in the morning, and there was nobody online, right? And I had these 4 or 5 hours where nobody was on Slack. I don't think we had Slack. Uh, we added Slack later, but nobody was online. I didn't check my emails. I just had like 3, 4 focused hours of work where nobody would interrupt me. And I was working from home again. My environment was set up in a way that I had an office, a quiet place, all of that. And so I stumbled upon these 3, 4, 5 hours of uninterrupted period every day. And to add to that, my colleagues and the team at that time was very supportive, and we were all like a giant family. And so I stumbled into this setup where the work I was doing was a little bit challenging. It was slightly outside my abilities. I had uninterrupted times of focus, or at least an uninterrupted time on my calendar available to me. And I had supportive colleagues who were okay with whatever I did, right? And so that combination sort of led me to this 3, 4 years of a deep work period. And I also happened to come across Cal Newport's book. It was getting popular in those days.
Yeah.
And so I started, going deeper into. I read the book and I thought, okay, maybe, he's stretching it too much. And I felt like it was too much about academia in the beginning. But I read it multiple times. I also had a couple of conversations in the Rails community with DHH and a few other folks who have been doing this sort of work, and that whole iconoclast behavior in DHH was at that point sort of alluring. So a combination of all of that led me to have some more belief in the whole deeper philosophy
Hmm.
as laid out by Cal Newport. Then I started practicing it, and then that went on for like a 3, 4, 5 year period, and a lot of really good things came out of that. Like I at work, I did really good things. A lot of my SQL and database skills deepened. I ended up building my workshop out of that, and I saw reasonable amount of success. I gave a bunch of talks, including like my talk about deep work, a bunch of job posts. I ended up uh, becoming like an engineering manager, did well in that role, then subsequently built a consulting business that did well. So a lot of really good things happened out of those 3, 4, 5 years of focused work, right?
Hmm.
And when I was doing that work, I was in that zone of working. I wasn't really thinking about any of these things. Like I did not really set out, oh, I want to build a business, I want to do this. Things just happened organically as a offshoot of the work I was doing. Right?
Nice.
And so when I looked back on that, I realized that being able to focus hard on a problem that is slightly outside your comfort zone, slightly outside your current skill set for long periods of time is mostly what everybody needs in their career, but they don't get it. Right. And whoever is able to do it, whoever is able to access that, they end up doing substantial, like really good career defining work. And people are able to live their caliber, as far as I know, or maybe not that glorious, but they're able to do like far better job than they otherwise could have. Right. One theme, like I'll go a little bit off topic and
Of course.
introduce one theme that has been featuring in my discussions lately is the caliber versus ambition problem, right? People are often like ambitious. Everybody's ambitious. Everybody deserves to be ambitious.
Yeah.
But they're not able to match that ambition because their caliber is somewhat lacking. The calibration between the actual caliber and ambition is like, there's like a little bit of divide, and
So
people
are
are not
people
able
too
to.
ambitious
Yeah, I
compared
think
to their caliber?
everybody sort of is too ambitious, right? Or, well, obviously not everybody, but generally speaking, software and tech industry attracts slightly ambitious people. So there's a self-selection of ambition in the tech industry itself. And people want to, like, they see great examples around, oh, Peter Norvig did this, Jeff Dean built MapReduce, Sergey Brin built Google, whatnot, they made billions, whatever, or they have the adulation of their peers, and then we want to be like that, aspirations, which is great, uh, something to work towards, but somewhere in their minds, people start making these goals for themselves. Oh, I want like a whatever, some fancy car, big house, exit, ESOP money, this and that. So, and then, but
Right.
often like their calibers are not up to it, or if the caliber is there, they don't know how to reach, because obviously like some level of commercial success comes from uh, business smartness as well, right? It's not all engineering that can get you there. But even if, let's say, we were to focus on engineering caliber and all, people are often unable to find work, find something that drives them there. And what the common theme I keep seeing and I've experienced is that this whole deep work phase, everybody needs it. Like if you go through like such a phase yourself, maybe a couple of years, 2, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, then chances are that you're going to meet that and be able to like be somewhat comfortable with your caliber and ambition and where you are. Right? It happened to me in some ways, happened to many other people I know. Right. So I have like bunch of lived experiences. And obviously this is anecdote, not like empirical evidence. I
Yeah.
get that. But the evidence, at least some level of anecdotal evidence exists, right? And so I think that's why this topic is personally close to me, and I think uh, is significant in any level of engineering discourse. I think the ability to work deeply with a long period of focus, I think, is an important discourse, and it it's good for anybody to try and do that for themselves. Like there's only upside to it. Yeah. Does it make sense? Like, or it sounded like somebody just rambling.
No, it makes complete sense. So it's interesting to know that you had about 4 or 5 years worth of significant deep work to the tune of 4 to 5 hours every day, and that's a huge time block that many people don't realize how valuable it is. But what you're saying is that because you had it, it ended up you discovering different layers of your professional life, which you could not think of before you started this journey. And in a sense, it ended up developing your caliber as well as an engineer, because you build skills in various domains, and then you built workshops out of those skills, which speaks about the depths that you achieved, which was like deep enough for you to share it with other people.
Right.
So yeah, the whole discovery has been around the deep work and the techniques of it and the value of it.
Correct. Yeah,
Let's
I mean,
take
I
it
learned
forward.
like new languages, which I previously was like only admiring from a distance, Haskell or OCaml, for example, right? I used to admire functional programming from a distance. But then during one of the phases, there was a particular problem that needed a functional type language to solve it elegantly. I ended up using some OCaml there. And if I did not have like that kind of focus, or focus time available, I probably would have just went with my comfort zone, which was Ruby at that time. Like I was already good at Ruby. I knew
Hmm.
how to build systems in Ruby, and it was so easy to just roll with it, right? But then I thought, hey, you know what? Let me try something new, and I had the time and availability, the opportunity to just sit down and do like pursue this problem in a leisurely fashion, right? And then if you notice, like leisurely pursuit becomes intellectual pursuit if you do it like without any like an agenda free time. So like if you do like an agenda free leisurely pursuit, it ends up becoming your intellectual pursuit. And I think this is the part that really like deep work or this focus period gives you. It allows you to explore and do things on your own, and things stumble out of it. Like because like you and I both know that you can't really plan and carve out and map your career the way you can map out like a product, right? Human beings and social lives are like too complex to uh, plan and enact and whatnot, right? It's not that straightforward. And life has surprising ways of making different things happen.
Yeah.
So like but we can control like the way we work, what we do, etc.
Yeah.
And then that can end up shaping.
Especially in knowledge economy, where we have more knowledge available than ever due to internet and due to all these connected devices. um, it's all the more important that in this new era of never ending distractions, so to say, um, uh, we understand deep work. um,
Absolutely.
Sounds good.
Yesterday,
Let's. Yeah.
yeah, yesterday I came across a tweet which is like relevant to this topic. from Andy Hunt. Andy Hunt is one of the foremost thinkers of our generation. He wrote Pragmatic Programmer, which ended up defining this generation of software development, right? So he said, like, if you came across candy lying on a road, you're not going to pick it up, eat it, and share it with your friends, right? Social media is like same, right? Treat it as like candy lying on the street, right? Unless you know the source of the information, you know about it, you, don't like consume it, don't share it. And I think deep work is also about that, right? That you are in that zone, and you're not just talking about it, and you're not consuming random content. You are consuming and working through focused, targeted things. Uh, so yeah, that's where we are.
But it's so rewarding, right? I mean, that's why people keep doing it. It's so rewarding for our brains to pick that candy up and share it with
Correct.
somebody, because
Yeah.
there is a kick that the person gets out of it.
Correct. I think, like, I mean, maybe there's like I'm pretty sure there's like psychology and all behind it. Like there
Yeah.
is dopamine rewards, receptors being hit and whatnot. Mostly short-term rewards, versus like long-term. And maybe like something about the marshmallow test holds true here, that if you can wait, then you get like multiple marshmallows. But if you pick that candy, then that's the only one that you're getting. So maybe for some people, like the short-term reward is good enough, right? But if not, like for let's say engineers and people, makers, sellers, somebody like you and me, we are looking to do something meaningful. Like we want to build something nice. We want to feel good. Like I said, like the intellectual pursuit does not come in vain, right? I think we need to spend some time and effort and planning into it, right? And then I think, and the same thing applies to deep work as well. Like you can't just start doing deep work from like, oh, tomorrow I have a full block of meeting free time, I'll go do some deep work. That doesn't happen.
Mm.
Right. And then that's how, like, I think that the talk I gave at RubyConf back in 2019 or 2018 was born. That out of the 3-4 years of practice, uh, I figured like, uh, what worked for me and what didn't work. I'll sort of compile all the things and give like a pointers. Let's say you and I were pair programming, and one key aspect of pair programming is avoiding bad solutions, right? One of the
Mhm.
reasons why I say pairing is so effective is you end up avoiding silly mistakes and bad solutions that you would otherwise pursue on your own. And so the talk was sort of like a pair programming fashion where I said, yeah, these things I tried already, and these are the reasons why it doesn't work. Like, don't even go there. Start, start from like where I started. Let's say 1 year into my journey, so you can get a head start and do better, like optimize it further. That's it.
Thank you so much for that analogy. This podcast is exactly about doing that, pair programming with different experts and peeking into their experience so that the viewers don't end up making the same mistakes.
Perfect.
Awesome. Let's dive into the talk.
Great. I think it might benefit uh, the rest of the conversation if I sort of lay out the narrative or structure of the talk a little bit.
Yeah.
So, generally speaking, um, any topic that I want to deconstruct, or any experience report that I want to present, I try to break it into sort of three phases. First one is like the what and why of the talk, or what and why of this material. Like, what are we doing, and then why are we doing it? Like, setting the context. We did that in some sense already, so perhaps we can skip that section. Then the rules and strategies, right? What worked, what didn't work. Like, what are some rules? What are some strategies to watch out for? And then how did these rules come to be? And how did these strategies come to be? And then finally, some pitfalls, like things that don't work, things to watch out for, etc., etc. So
Right.
those are the general three sections. I'm pretty sure I think we can skip the first section because we've just had uh, a chat, and I think uh, a lot of the listeners of the 10x Engineering podcast already have a very good idea about the knowledge economy. They're living in it, they're participating in it, and I don't think we need to go deeper into that. I think people understand it. So let's just start from the rules straight up. We'll skip the preamble and we'll jump right into the material.
Okay.
So the core hypothesis is that to do well in a career, the proxy, like deep work, sort of is a proxy for developing an X factor, right? And when I say X factor, that's like something that is unique to you, something in which you are disproportionately good at, right? And that comes from mastering hard things. And so that's the core premise of deep work, as laid out in the book, as laid out in the online discourse, and as I and many other people have discovered. So the talk is about mastering hard, or the material is about mastering hard things fast and developing like an X factor for yourself. So just want to set that stage so that we can remember that some part of that is working towards this. So if something doesn't make sense, we'll try to connect it to the core premise, right? The first principle that I want to dive into is that you have to have clear boundaries between deep work and shallow work. And the nature of work is such that deep work is distinct from shallow work. And again, when I say shallow work, I don't mean like shallow personality or shallow in a negative way.
Hmm.
I'm just using shallow as like the opposite of deep work, right? Or opposite of deep in here. Shallow waters are deep waters. Like how you would swim in shallow waters is different from how you would swim in deep waters, right?
Hmm.
In uh, in deep waters, you don't have respite and whatnot, so you have to make provisions accordingly. If you're going on a sea swim, you need to have a boat with you, so that if you get too tired, there's no way you can rest and stop in the sea. You need the boat, and if you don't have the boat, then consequences are bad. Whereas if you're in a shallow water, in a stream or a pond or something, you can just walk to the shore, go to the shore, and like it doesn't need a lot of planning.
Correct.
So that sort of analogy, shallow versus deep,
Hmm.
right? Because the moment I say shallow, people start thinking, especially like people who are like leaders, managers, start thinking like, oh man, this guy saying I my work is shallow, like whatnot. There's a little bit of negativity associated with the word shallow, and I
Yeah.
just want to side skirt that and avoid that. Uh, so anyway, so the idea is that your boundary should be clear. Uh, you know, there is shallow work and there is deep work, and also the reality of life is that we have to do both. We have to have meetings, we have to have email responding, we have to have Slack. These things are part of work. We're not like recluses who can go live in a castle somewhere where nobody's disturbing them, people are bringing them food and things like that, right? We're not recluses, we are still very much social, we are still very much living, breathing, working with other people.
Yeah.
And so our work day is divided into shallow and deep. There is no denying it. So the very first part is to accept it and then draw clear boundaries, right? And so now the next set of rules that I'll go through, strategies that I'll go through, are about setting these boundaries properly. And the first and the biggest hurdle is just too many meetings. Like, and at this point, like every software engineer I know identifies with this problem where they have just too many meetings to deal with, right? A known problem, right? And my hypothesis is that every software engineering org has more meetings than it needs to. Like the number of meetings is always more than needed. Right? Like people have meetings all the time. They are just a substitute for whatever not feeling or feeling lazy to type things out, writing things out, to just preferring to talk to a human. Like it could be like something as innate as, yeah, I just prefer to talk to a human.
Hmm.
But more often than not, it's used as a blunt instrument to avoid written work or to avoid having a system of work, right? And anyway, let's say even if the meetings are coming from a good place or a bad place, like ill intent, good intent, or out of apathy, carelessness, or out of careful planning, fact is that we just get too many meetings, right? And it's good to segment them, good to avoid them as much as possible, etc. Right? Some meetings should be avoided, some meetings need to be segmented together, etc. Generally speaking, software teams have a pathological need to meet and talk for whatever reason. Uh, so if you're
But
able to receive. Mhm.
so I want to challenge that. Do you think software teams have that pathological need, or is it software engineers who have that pathological need, and it's okay for one engineer to just connect with another engineer? Why do you need a team of 10 people, 8 people to
Okay,
meet so often?
that's actually that's a good challenge. I'll accept that. What happens is, so I'm talking about two different things. One is obviously the fundamental human nature of being around and kind of being connected and feeling connected to people.
Yeah,
I want to separate that from the need of teams in the collaboration mode. When teams are collaborating, like there is a strong feeling, or the de facto is that you talk to other people, right?
right,
However, if you look at core principles of collaboration feedback, the de facto mode is that you communicate the point across, right? And then you basically, if you look at talking and being able to communicate with each other as a leverage, then you don't always use, if you keep using leverage, you get hemorrhage. Right? So you have to use that leverage wisely. Um, so if you look at talking and being able to discuss something freely, right, as an important activity, then you, and if you keep doing it again and again, the efficacy of that goes down, right? Obviously, because we are fundamentally social, and if we don't draw that boundary, we overuse it. And talking, for example, is a low, what do you say, high noise signal to noise ratio activity compared to a written, let's say, one pager. You can make a one pager a very dense to the point thing. When you talk, you're not going to just speak it out, right? You will add a preamble, you will add context, you will add other things, which
right.
may or may not always be needed. Sometimes they're needed, but most of the time they're not. People are smart. Like we're working with engineers, designers, product managers, QA. These are professionals who know what they're doing. And so good to the point terse communication actually works, right? But like often teams are just reluctant to try it, right? Because whatever the needs and the reasons could be many. But what I'm saying is there's always like a almost pathological need to constantly talk. Maybe like have a stand
Right.
up goes on. Two people need to discuss like an API spec. They'll say, oh, let's set a time on calendar. Okay, you don't need to. Just write down the open API spec in a clear and concise manner, add a guide and share it. And then if the other people, the other party has a doubt or something, they'll ask. You can do this asynchronously on your own time, and you can, actually have a much better result. So there's like the artificial need to, oh, just get it done today or whatever. There's an artificial need for speed that generally comes from lack of planning and lack of operational excellence. So what happens is like more often than not, teams lack operational excellence. Then from this lack of operational excellence comes this overuse of meetings. Right. Again, I'm generalizing here. Obviously, some teams are operationally excellent, and then they still do a lot of meetings and all.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about outliers. Uh, Larger public software teams, etc. Even at the biggest and the best of the companies, people just have too many meetings, right? And you could cut them down to half, and nothing would change in the company, right? Provided somebody is taking the effort to, have that clear and concise communication, whatnot. Uh, so I think one of my friend had said wisely that some of the professional communication, like meetings and all, are a proxy for not doing the homework or proxy for not taking the effort. Like status meetings,
yeah,
like one of the great examples. Status meetings are the most useless forms of meetings, right? And yet, like managers, leaders continue to have them instead of having like living, breathing documents, Jira boards or Kanban boards and whatnot, one pagers, Confluence, where you could just take a look at that and understand everything that you want to understand. And yet we continue to have status meetings, right? For example, in the teams that I've been and I've enjoyed working, stand-ups were like every day catching up with colleagues. Like we liked seeing each other, we liked talking to each other, And so stand-up was our way to just socialize, 20, 30 minutes of just comfortable, casual chat, where we would catch up on different things. We would discuss blockers and whatnot, priorities. Those things would happen. But people would also use that time to get to know each other better, talk and whatnot, right? And then people are off to their own work. Anyway, coming back to the point, like generally speaking, in any team, for various reasons, there will be just way more meetings than needed. So the next obvious thing to think about when it comes to deep work is having meeting free days, right? Like we had a no meeting Thursday, no meeting Wednesday, and after I spoke about it in multiple places, like this trend caught on, and like no meeting Thursday, no meeting Wednesday is a thing, right? In Cologne, we had instituted a no meeting Thursday. We observed it for 3 years, and there was no meeting. Like on that day, there were no meetings. People would talk, but that was like mostly like discussion and things like that, right? Or let's say we were into pairing at that point.
Hmm.
So people would do like pairing and all that, but no more than two people coming together and talking like that. That was basically avoided on that day. And so people would plan around that. Now, meeting free day is great, but you know what is better than meeting free day?
Meeting free
It's meeting
weeks.
free week, right? So if you have a nice chunk of week, then that allows you to like just basically that 10x metaphor is truly applicable here, right? You're stretching that one day to let's say 5 days, but the effect is like 10x, 100x. You know that like when your brain knows that this whole week I don't have meetings, I can just go deep in the work that I'm doing. Like you will get 2, 3 weeks worth of work done in that week. I guarantee you. Like when you know that you're not going to be disturbed, you're not going to be interrupted, you can just go fast, go deep, and you can get the work done. So having meeting free weeks is ideal. I mean, obviously everybody should try to have meeting free days every week, but there should be like every month, week, whatnot, like alternate week, whatever suits the organization. Just have like meeting free week. Like this week, everybody's getting the things done. If you have like tight deadlines and things, it's great to have like a meeting free week sufficiently early into the cycle. Let's say it's middle of the October right now,
Hmm.
and we have like a tight important deadline deliverable middle of November, right? So it's great to have like a meeting free week later this month. So like little bit into the process where people have clarity, but not so late that status of work becomes a problem or anxiety factor. So somewhere midway, great to introduce like a meeting free week where people just go deep into their work, right? And then if you roll it into the organizational calendar, it works beautifully. I mean, when I was working on challenging problems, there were like times where I would not attend a stand up, I would not come to any meeting for weeks altogether, right? But I had that expectation set with my teammates, and then they were okay with it, right? There was one huge query. We were writing like some level of analytics style, analytics plus computer engine style product based in SQL. Uh, I was the data science team had come up with a set of rules, and then we were implementing those rules in our product, right? Like it turned out to be like a 500 line giant query. A defining moment in my career. I learned so much in those 3 weeks. Like half of my workshop, especially the one on SQL querying, was born out of that. Like the uh, 3 weeks of work that I did ended up with so many things. And so I did not even turn up to any single stand up in those 3 weeks, right? But I got the whole thing done. And did it in a way like it was well tested, whatever. But there was like uh, static checking and all that. Like so, there are many layers of that work. Anyway,
Right.
digressing now. But what I'm saying is,
Swanand, so this works definitely for the senior engineers who
right,
know when they are on track and who
right,
can identify when they are off track, who are good at
correct,
communicating as well and crafting those messages. Might not be
correct,
a full document or a full Confluence page, but
yeah,
it could be a small email, it could be a small Slack message, right?
correct,
One paragraph, two paragraphs. there is a lot of assumptions about self-awareness, a lot of assumptions about the quality of communication skills and quality of self-organization that an individual has.
Sure.
And having that across teams,
Mm-hmm.
that's quite rare, especially in India, where
Okay.
you routinely have people who are not so good at communicating, who are not so good at articulating the doubt, articulating the hurdle that they are facing right now.
Okay.
In the face of that, how do you view the need of stand-ups, the need of meetings? Because that is compensating for the lack of skill.
Understood. And my experience is otherwise like I've uh, consistently worked with teams where, or hired and built teams where this was not a problem. But let's say if you had people who are not so skilled or at communication yet,
Yeah,
and no, I'm not saying stand-ups are bad. I think stand-ups are great. Like for the reason that it becomes a bonding point for the team, right? One pivotal point in day, if done right. If you do the stand-up in a way that you tell what you did, you tell what you did, you tell what you did, those stand-ups are dead. Like they're trapped. Like nothing short of crap. But if you flip the stand up and go look at your core Kanban board or whatever you work out of
right.
and look at things in priority order, right? As a team, then it becomes a great focal point for the day, right? And you can adjust that in the schedule, right? Some like I'm not saying, and this will come later in the in the content that sometimes it's just unavoidable to work, unavoidable to have these things. And sometimes it's good to. So my strategy was to segment them, you know, like if you're having stand up, then have it like later in the day. Great, like uh,
Hmm.
use your focus time, energy, high energy time in the morning to get the work done. Move to stand up in the afternoon where people are sleepy. If you have the luxury of having people in a similar time zone,
Right.
you can adjust according, let's say afternoon, late afternoon, etc. So there are different strategies around that as well. So you don't have to completely avoid those things, because sometimes you cannot, like you said, so you can avoid that. So that, but the core point, the first strategy was to have a definite meeting free time,
Hmm.
uh, and the key is having a planned meeting free time, not an unplanned one. So if it's planned, then your brain knows, and then you can get in that mode, right? So that's the thing.
Right.
uh, and then again, coming back to the boundary, email, Asana, Trello, Jira, PR reviews. These are what I call as the shallows, right? They're all important. Like we cannot avoid that. So the idea is segment it all in a time slot. Like in Colon, for example, the team had a habit of updating and responding. Like all PR reviews and Jira update happened towards the second half later in the day. So by the end, like people would finish, like they would finish like either chunk of pair programming or focus work, and then they would go and update everything, write docs and whatnot. So whenever you came into work in the morning, you would have like a bunch of things, comments and stuff waiting for you. Like you could choose to go dive into them, or you could choose to finish your work first, then go dive into those later, etc. All of those depended on the context and the team. But that set everybody up nicely. And they had that morning and afternoon to themselves, and then the evenings or late afternoons for all these shallow work, right? So I generally recommend having like a fixed time slot for them in the day towards the end of the day. Generally works great. This also like came from born from the idea that when I was working with the US team, I would wake up, like my day would be done at the time team would wake up, right? So the team was doing stand up in their morning to accommodate for my evening, right? Because
Right.
their evening would be like I'll be sleeping,
Correct.
and so obviously we could not do stand up at that time. So the team was kind enough to choose a time that worked for me, right? And then everybody there also, some people preferred morning and whatnot, so it worked out for us. But my idea is like we chose a strategic time for the stand up and not just the first available slot on the calendar, you know, like.
Yeah.
Then the second, now because I spoke about pair programming, I think I want to add that 100% pairing is definitely 100% distraction. So, like, I never ever uh, recommend doing 100% pair programming all the time, even though I'm a strong proponent of pair programming and I've used it quite a bit in my career, colon, everywhere, like even Deserve, First.io. I don't recommend doing it all the time. It's very hard to be in a deep focus zone with someone else, right? Like it's, even if like you're like spouses and whatnot and working together, I like it's super hard to develop that kind of chemistry. It takes years and years to develop that kind of chemistry. People like, I've known teams and pairs who have worked with each other for years, and they have developed that kind of chemistry. It just takes too much time. So if you can invest and have the opportunity to have somebody who you quickly get in the zone with, great. But don't rely on that. Like 100% pairing is 100% distraction. Have like pairing free days, pairing free weeks, where you just on your own. And we tend to also think a little bit better on our own, right? And our job is like, as much as it is understood, it's also misunderstood. Software engineering is like maybe 20% about coding, right? 80% is about thinking, or maybe 60% is about thinking, 20% about communicating, articulating. A majority of our job is about thinking. And so you have to have that time set aside for thinking. And we get into this habit of thinking while coding, right? And the really, really good developers separate those two, right? The great developers, like the ultra smart, very sharp developers, they are so fast at thinking that they do it on the roll.
Hmm.
But those are outliers. Like you're talking like, like I'm sure like Sanjay Ghemawat and Jeff Dean did not need to sit and think. Things would just roll for them, right? Uh, Maybe not, but what I'm saying is the people who do exceptional work often take the time out to sit and think, then do the coding, and then there's some mix or amalgamation of both. So that's why like this whole pairing angle. So everybody needs pairing free days and then again pairing free weeks, for
Yeah.
example.
See, it's also
Right?
worth mentioning that people who seemingly, can think on the fly while coding, they have actually painfully reached that stage.
Correct. Right.
They have
It's
struggled
cleaning
through the
things.
thinking and figured out the mental models and figured out where their thinking fits with their coding. And
Absolutely.
now they have reached that maturity where they can just think on the fly. But that
Correct.
is just the end state that we are looking at. And it's worth celebrating the journey, which is invisible, which is very hard to see
Absolutely.
because nobody
Absolutely.
shares it. Yeah,
And the other thing is, if you are rolling, they call it rolling with the punches and doing things on the fly, one indicator is that you are working with things that you already know or problems that are a little bit familiar with.
right.
And everybody who, when they're working at the stretch of their abilities, they cannot do that automatic thing unless they're like Stephen Hawking or something, who is like an IQ of 180, whatnot. And if you have that kind of IQ, then you don't need this podcast. You don't need me. You don't need anyone to tell you. Like you probably already are gifted. So I mean, obviously there are people who like Einstein's and Stephen Hawking's, etc. Who can or Feynman, who can just think about any problem on the spot and they don't need anything. Like they have this whole ability mapped out. I'm not that. Like I don't have a 180 IQ. I don't even know what it is. I mean, what my IQ is. But what I'm saying is, for normal human beings, and I'm saying normal for software engineers. Software
Yeah,
engineers are already a little bit left brain, some self-selection, and we are uh, arrogantly, I would say, like we're slightly ahead of the pack, whatnot, right? Just
right.
facts of matter. By virtue of the social structure and economical structures and whatnot, software engineers are, let's say, are one of those professions who are at the top of the intellectual hierarchy, right? Somewhere at the top. I'm not saying the absolute top and whatnot. Obviously, that's completely debatable. But what I'm saying is, at
Yeah,
the top of the intellectual hierarchy, there's a condensed bunch of professions: investment banking, journalism, etc., whatnot,
right, right,
who by nature select people who are a little bit, let's say, intellectual or mentally gifted or have some ability, right? So in that, the normal is that you have that ability to think, but not on the fly. So when you work at the edge of your ability, you need to take time to get the neuron connections and whatnot solidified in your brain,
right.
and that doesn't happen. Which is why my point is that you have to identify and give some thinking time, I think really well with, say, pen and paper, right? Like if I have a pen and paper with me, like I think with it, like I'll draw, doodle, whatnot. It gives me clarity. It gives me an outlet of my loose thoughts. Sometimes like, and this is a great experiment. Again, we're diverging a little bit, but this is something I would love for you to try. Let's say if you're thinking about something very deep, you often have two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight threads of thoughts, right?
Right.
Now we have a limited short-term memory. Sometimes it's four things at a time. Sometimes it's five things at a time.
Yeah.
When you find yourself going beyond that, having the pen and paper to quickly write down that idea helps.
Yeah.
It goes from your short-term memory to the pen and paper, and then you can come back to it when you need it. It serves as like a cache or a register of sorts for our brains.
Yes. Yeah, I
Uh,
do that. So while reading books, especially interesting books, there are usually these tangents where my mind will just go off. There are new thoughts, there are disagreements or agreements with the idea that's in the book, or there is a new endeavor that might click, that let me try this, let me try that. And
yeah,
what I struggled with for quite some time is that I would just not be able to focus on the book. By half page, one page, maybe two or three pages, my focus is gone. And this technique of, when I'm having an offshoot thought, just writing it down on a piece of paper works really well, because I know the thought is not going to get lost, and I can finish one or two chapters in a sitting, and I have maybe 30, 40 points in a paper, and then I can take my sweet time and process them separately apart from the book.
correct.
Works very well. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it also acts as a beautiful filter because not every thought is worth having.
Yeah,
Sometimes, like,
I end up
every
striking off half of them,
yeah, you can
because
strike
they
off like,
seem,
okay, yeah, that sounded nice at that time, but doesn't make any sense now. Let me strike it off and whatnot.
or
Great
maybe it
filter.
seemed very complex at that time, and
Yeah,
after an hour or two, after a day, when I look at it, it's simpler, and I can just make
correct,
sense of it immediately. So maybe there was a question, now it's no longer a question. So
correct. Yeah, yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. That's exactly the whole point. Like our short-term memories are not that great, and having that pen and paper really helps.
yeah.
Specifically, like when you're doing things that are associated visually, like software architecture, having a pen and paper next to you is such a gift. And again, pen and paper for me, maybe a notepad, Emacs for someone else, whatnot,
Right.
right? Whatever, some medium. Uh, so yeah, case in point, the thinking time is important, and you have to give yourself, acknowledge and give yourself the thinking time in whatever way it works for you,
Right.
right? And again, by nature, like on-call rotation, pager duty, these things are shallow work. You have the whole point of pager duty is you respond to an external trigger, right? So you
Yeah.
need to set yourself in a mode that, hey, I'm doing something, I'm making my tea, but if the pager rings, I need to run, right? You cannot take on deep work in that mode. Impossible. You might get 4 or 5 hours of uninterrupted time when there's no pager that hits, but you'll not be able to go into focus because your brain is trained to respond to that pager. And you're supposed to be in that mode, like when you're doing like active on-call duty. So when you're on call, don't do deep work, don't do uninterrupted, just don't plan for it. And for software, like engineering managers and leaders and anybody who manages people's work, it behooves them to not load people who are on call and don't give them heavy work during their on call duties. Right? Let keep the workload light. Like in Colon, we used to keep the workload around 50%, and people would do bug fixes during their on call period.
Yeah.
Smaller, simpler. And of course, sometimes a bug fix reveals a much bigger fix. We would put that for later. They were not expected to, but we would give them triaging duties, etc., during the on-call period.
Right.
That becomes natural. Our policy was everybody was doing on-call 1 week in 6 weeks, right?
Hmm.
So 1.5 months, in the 1.5 month period, you'll do like 1 week of on-call. That was the ratio we had based on our team size. It worked healthy enough,
Yeah.
and that gave people enough time to spend slightly downtime, whatnot. They're supposed to be available for a longer period of time, but it's a down, slightly less intense period, and people did not do any deep work there intentionally. So again, those kind of, if you're on that kind of duty, don't do on call. It's shallow by definition. The whole idea is, again, I'll come back to that point because I think that it's that important. Is that when we know that we won't be disturbed, we focus better. Our brains are smart in that sense. They are self-aware in that sense, right? When you know that you're not going to be focused, you're not going to be, or when you know that you're not going to be focused, you don't go in the focus mode at all, right? And so it takes certain level of confidence and comfort with the idea that next 4 hours are for me and me alone. Your brain will go into that mode, right? Let's say you're sitting and watching TV, but you are expecting like a lunch delivery or something. You will not be able to enjoy the material fully, like because half your attention is on that. The bell is going to ring. I'm going to get a call from the Amazon person anytime. Same principle here, but even in a more poignant manner. So that's the idea. Okay, so that was one part. Like you separate out your deep and shallow parts of your work life,
Mhm.
create planned segments for them, and in periods of shallow work, avoid deep work. In periods of deep work, avoid shallow work. If you notice, like a lot of the shallow work tends to be interrupt driven,
Right.
like a notification on Slack, Jira, email. It's a reactive, interrupt driven work, not suited for deep work. And then deep work can be like proactive when you're just sitting and doing things. So that's the idea. That's the central point. Separate out those two, make clear boundaries, and then enact those boundaries. Right. Now the next strategy is like the focus doesn't just come like that. You have to focus on the focus. Like you have to intentionally set things up so that you can go in the focus mode, right? Continuation of what we said earlier. So you have to plan for that focus and basically work the premise is work deeply and plan for the depth. You cannot just make it happen. A lot of things need to align before you can work in that focus mode, because even if you convince your brain you have the segmentation done, you still cannot go into that focus mode because it's not that easy. Like there are things like biology and all that work against it. So this section is a little bit about navigating that. Like, how do you plan for it?
Okay.
And the number one focus killer is uncertainty. Right? If you're in an uncertain mood, not knowing what to do, very hard to get into focus mode. This is where the point earlier you made about junior engineers or people earlier in their career is a factor that for a lot of junior folks, there is a lot of uncertainty, right? There's one level of uncertainty. One is like a domain uncertainty where you don't know what exactly you're supposed to do or the uncertainty about what. And then juniors have the added challenge of uncertainty of how, right? And so this uncertainty again is a focus killer. You need strategies to navigate around that uncertainty, right? So let's say even if somebody is a junior, they should know like what to try or things to try out. It's always okay to not know how to solve something,
Hmm.
right? But it's not okay to not know what things need to be tried out, right? And of course, sometimes you just run out of both. Actually, it's not okay. It's a little bit harsh, but you should have a modus operandi, right? Like operandi, like MO, of what all things to do when you're stuck, when you don't know how to solve, etc. Like now you have like Google and ChatGPT and whatnot to help you get unstuck and things like that. But even earlier than that, like we had this guide where if you're stuck on this problem, like what to do, things to try. Like, let's say if you're trying to figure out the root cause of a bug, right? Everybody has these steps to follow. Check the load balancer, check the logs, errors, look at memory, add system.out.println. Everybody has like these 10 different things to try. Check the DNS records, whatnot, right? If you're seg fault, then look at the stack trace.
Yeah.
All of those, we have these set things, accepted things that we've done. So
Yeah.
people should have like some sort of an MO planning that if I get stuck, when you go into work, you sort of have the basic idea of what domain you're working in. So have a plan to deal with uncertainty before. Let's say if you're building like a API plus front end app, then like you're working with backend code, you're working with like a web server, proxy, reverse proxy, whatnot, you're working with a front end server. So there are like these common things that you might face. Maybe the hard code reloading did not work. Maybe your reverse proxy server did not restart, right? Maybe you're running into CORS errors. It happens all the time with working with front end and back end. So the field of uncertainty can be somewhat navigated by doing some advanced planning. Right? If you're working with, let's say, emails, then you know, like SMTP, there are some corner cases you need to figure out. Like maybe the mailer daemon is not working, or mailer daemon crashed, did not restart, you change configs, those are not reflected. Common things, right? Some common problems. You're working with background workers, and like maybe the queues are not looking at the right Redis configuration and all those things. What I'm saying is, like, having a plan to navigate the potential known unknowns helps. Now, of course, if you run into like an unknown,
Hmm.
then there's no planning for it. And then you're on your own. And in that case, again, it's up to the individual to navigate that. But my plan is, like, uncertainty is a focus killer. Have a plan for exactly what you're going to do, right? And you don't need to plan for how you're going to do too much. But you do need to plan for what you're going to do. You just exactly this week, my task is to do these 5 things. And I know, like, there are these other 5 things in the backlog. I can pick them up if uh, I'm I'm done with my top 5 things. I know what the sixth thing is. So that uncertainty is a focus killer. We need to make sure that we deal with that as much before with planning as we can. So plan your day well, and then again, by virtue, plan your week well, right? I always do like weekly planning and whatnot. Even GTD has a great focus on weekly review and planning.
Yes.
So that this whole concept of week I've used it repeatedly in this the rules and strategy and pitfall. Week is a beautiful chunk of work, right? It's so nice. Like, I don't know, like, how we lucked out into that week thing, but it's like 4 or 5 days of doing things, having a focus, theme, and all that. So good. Like, when I was leading team, like, at Conan, uh, I would have weekly themes. Like, this week I would work on recruitment. Next week I would work on, let's say, art about the final product. The week after that, I would work on the Android playbook, stuff like that. So I would have these weekly themes, and I would tell the team that, hey, this week we're working on this, and we'll just go and focus on that per week. Instead of saying every Thursday I'll work on recruitment, or I will
Right.
work on, let's say, recruitment when it comes up in my list. Uh, the other way to do is, like, spread it in weekly chunks, and it just works beautifully. So
Yeah.
this week, the theme of planning in weeks is a repeatable theme.
Yeah. Another way to think about it is for senior folks, if you are focusing on multiple streams, then you have multiple things to focus on every week. Maybe you have 4 streams, and that gives you 4 weeks worth of different focus areas. And the idea is that in 1 week, you do critical enough work, deep enough work, which you end up delegating, which like through which you generate clarity and then delegate the clearer work down to your team, and they are going to work on it for the next 3 weeks before you come
Correct.
back to it
Yeah,
after three
nice
more
way to
weeks.
put it. Correct. So I mean, even here, like, similar principles, it doesn't mean that you're not doing any of the other things. What it means is that your boundary in your deep and shallow work, your deep work boundary is reserved for this theme.
Right.
And your shallow work boundary obviously is open, to account for uncertainties, interruptions, all of that. But your deep work boundary is reserved for a particular theme, particular planned set of work. And then obviously you should let your team know that this is my theme, so they know, like, what to expect, when you're done, etc.
Mm.
So some level of expectation setting and all planning can happen, especially for leaders. I think it's critical for leaders, like staff engineer, for example. Staff engineer also a leader. People don't, like, I think it's not understood
Yeah.
very clearly, but staff and principal engineers are as much leaders as engineering managers and senior
Yes.
engineering managers. It's just that they don't manage people's time, but they are still leaders. And so, let's say you're a principal engineer who wants to dive deep into something, just let the team know that, hey, this week my focus is on this, and if you have other things my way, like, send them my way during before planning, and I can accommodate that stuff. But
Yeah.
the idea is that week is a beautiful chunk, and we don't use it often enough. All right. Uh, the other really important thing is the ledger time is ultra important, right? We have to forgive ourselves for wanting to have fun and actually go and have fun. If your mind is on, like, the next, let's say, Mission Impossible trailer launching this week, you will keep thinking about it at the back of your mind. But if you have like a 30-minute, 45-minute slot, let's say every day, let's say you and I'm somebody who likes watching Netflix. I don't really watch it that much. But let's say I'm somebody who likes watching Netflix. I reserve a time in the day where I do it. And I know that I am going to get that time in the evening because I want it and I don't want to be thinking about it all the time, right? So I plan for that time and it's in my calendar. And I know that I'm going to get that time, so I don't worry about it in the morning. Like, my mind does not race to open YouTube, Apple TV, and whatnot. I know it's like it's there. And so that leisure time is great, important and great. Like we must have a leisurely person. Like we must have fun, downtime, chill time. And so we have to account for that as well in the time, in the calendar. And again, the same thing, it's a matter of training the brain, right? If your brain knows that you're going to get that time later, then it does not race to do it right now. That assurity that comes from having a system that you can rely on cannot be stressed enough.
Right.
So that's the other thing, like forgive yourself for wanting to have fun and then account for time. Right now, next set of things are about work environment. I know we are coming close to our original time, so I'll try to go through some of these things a little bit fast. And then if something strikes to you as interesting or something that you have experienced, then we can talk about that. Okay.
Sounds good.
The most important aspect of the work that people cannot control is your work environment. Not everybody can choose a work environment. They're usually it's a given to them, like or it's given to them. You're maybe at your office, at home, and whatnot. It's very hard to do deep work in office, right? The amount of noise and visual pollution in an office is like just way too high, right? Especially like open office plans and are like just productivity and focus killers, for that matter.
Right.
So where you sit and work matters a lot. So my recommendation is that if you want to attempt deep work for a long period of time, work from a work from home or a quiet place that is maybe not uh, maybe your home is not suitable for deep work. People have like families and responsibilities, and maybe their houses are not suitable for this kind of work. So cafe or some library or something, right? So choose an environment where there's enough quiet and quiet by both visual and audio standards, right? There's audio and noise pollution, and there's visual pollution.
Right.
So pick an environment, even at work, let's say if it's like an office plan, pick it like a wall facing thing, you know, and so that people don't walk in front of you, things like that. So work environment is quiet, you got a plan for it. Noise is definitely a distraction. I think everybody knows that noise is a distraction, and we invest in things like noise cancellation headphones and whatnot. But the fact what we miss is the viewport activity. No matter how deep focus you are in, somebody walks in front of you, your focus is dead. I guarantee you. Right? Unless you have cubicles and whatnot, and you don't even notice people move, like whatever happens in your viewport, like the eye, what your eyes, where your eyes are, that is a distraction, right? And so viewport activity is much harder to manage. You can't control. Like, there's no viewport cancellation, glasses
Yeah.
available to man yet, or mankind yet.
Yeah.
So pick a place where viewport activity is minimal or zero and non-intrusive. I've had like things like etiquettes and things at work. Like workplaces suffer from this disease called tap on the shoulder. Right? People come and say, hey, like whatnot, and then you've been thinking about something for like hours, and suddenly somebody comes and taps, and your focus is broken, or you're just beginning to get into like a zone where your focus is developing, and then somebody comes and pings you and you're done.
Right.
So those kind of things need to be avoided. So there are some things that can work. For example, you can establish an etiquette, like if my headphones are on, then don't come and tap me on the shoulder,
Yeah.
right? If I have like a flag, Barbecue Nation has this wonderful thing, right? If you raise
Yes.
the flag, they'll keep bringing the food. You put the flag down, that means no food. Things like that. You can set up things like that. Train each other in the team and have that protocol set up in the office. If you're working from an office, it works great. The other big distraction is hunger, like highly underrated. But hunger is a major distraction. Like when you are in hours focusing, sometimes you just get hungry and you can't ignore it. You cannot fight biology, right? And so managing hunger is again like a very nice strategy activity. For example, if you have like a nice protein-rich breakfast in the morning, it can satiate you for hours and you're not going to go hungry. But if you eat like a dosa without a chutney or like a donut or something, super carb heavy or super like high glycemic index rice, if you eat like a bowl of rice in the morning, your body is going to burn that out in like an hour or two, right? A very high glycemic index is going to get absorbed, and you'll get the sugar rush and the carb crash, and then that's going to kill your focus. All
Right.
right. So hunger becomes a distraction. Hunger become like a distraction. Thirst is easily managed by having a bottle, but hunger is a distraction. So you gotta manage that hunger really well. Uh, then the other thing is also sleeping and exercising, right? Like they go hand in hand with hunger. If you don't get enough sleep the previous day, the chances are that your brain will not go into focus mode the next day, right? Like, and again, I think this is more commonly understood. Like, people have begun. There have been a lot of. I think back when I gave this talk in 2018, 19, sleep was not discussed that often. But now I think the last few years the awareness has increased. People have understood the importance and what factors lead to better sleep and all. So I'll probably skip that part. Uh, Now I'm coming to a core deeper principle called boredom. And embrace boredom is a strong and core deep work tenet. You have to get used to that mild level of boredom that comes. Like let's say you start the server, it takes let's say 8 seconds for your server to boot up. You cannot be tempted to open Twitter in those 8 seconds, right? Or go and jump back to your editor and try something out in those 8 seconds. You have to train yourself to just pause and keep looking at that server log, right? You make an API request, you have to wait in that moment for the API request to come back and try things out, right? We have this bad need driven into us by bad work environments where we want to optimize every moment of living or working. You don't
Yeah.
need to, right? We have like we tend to optimize because we want to use our time better and whatnot, and we become penny wise and pound foolish, right? And that's exactly what Cal Newport warned against in the book. That embracing boredom is one of the key aspects of when you are getting used to the boredom, then a lot of good things happen. Like one example is like a habit that I had broken at some point, but I'm back to that habit is carrying like phone to the loo. Like, when you're sitting, just carrying the phone, it's a bad habit because you're giving into the distraction. So if you can rid yourself of habits like that, it aids in deep work in many like more meaningful ways than we can imagine. So that embracing the boredom again is a core principle. Like basically avoid jumping into things when you're waiting for things, right? And one easy strategy to deal around this is like dial up the verbosity of things. If you're starting a SSH session, put it in a verbose mode. Add if you're starting a server, start in debug mode. Making an HTTP request, add minus VVVVV to your curl command, stuff like that. We can add things like this to make sure that there's enough interactivity that keeps you in the moment, keeps you glued to the current problem, and does not allow you to jump anywhere else.
Right.
Window managers and things like that are all good strategies. Like tile window managers, uh, Alfred and those kind of window managers are great way to keep your focus where you are. So this maybe and another strategy that works for me is like putting the phone away in a different room for 3 4 hours. And I was working from home, so it was easy for me to just keep the phone away. And somebody was available in the family to, let's say, the phone rang 10 times, they would come and ring my doorbell or something, right? So I had that luxury. But you gotta find your own luxury somewhere.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. A middle ground could be to put your phone away, 6 to 8 feet away from you, 10 feet away from you, on the desk in front of you, where
Correct.
you can't immediately reach it with, half a second sort of an effort. You have to get up,
Correct.
and there is a 4 or 5 second effort involved, and it's a good middle ground.
Absolutely. And one of the reasons why is the embrace boredom part important? The fact the jumping around, right? What we do when we are bored, it trains our mind to be in that mode. And there's a lot of our brains are surprisingly trainable. Who would have thought? right? Like we can train them to a great extent, and even these little activities, scrolling on social media and all, is actually training our brains. And so
Yeah,
this jumping around trains our brain to not go in that focus mode, right? It does require it needs that effort, and all of this quick jumping around and all, it trains our mind to be distracted, and it prevents long hours of focus. Eventually what happens is your ability to focus reduces. If you give in to distractions too often, your ability to focus distract. And if you worked in a toxic or hard environment for a couple of years, your ability to sit down and draft a long form blog post is greatly reduced. Many people have reported this. It's a common phenomenon, like commonly occurring. People
yeah,
in leadership positions, often they are working in hostile or close to hostile environments. If you ask them to sit down and craft a blog post, they can't do it. Just over the year, the constant giving in to interruptions has trained the brain to not ever be in a interrupt free zone.
yeah,
That's death for engineering skills.
yeah. So Anand, this used to be true for just leadership a few years ago, maybe a
Right,
decade ago,
right.
in 2000s. But since social media came around, this has unfortunately become a truth for everyone, because now
Everyone.
it's no longer a hostile work environment that you're in. It's the
Right.
hostile environment that you're in, where you're
Um,
constantly distracted. The moment you're free, you pull out your phone. If you're 5 minutes in the line, if you're 15 minutes in the doctor's office, you pull out your phone and you're just constantly swiping. And that distraction has, as you rightly said, eaten into our capability to have deeper thoughts and craft deeper, more
correct.
meaningful things, long form things.
Yeah, and I think the only recourse is to not do it for again the equally longer or maybe even longer period of time, right? If you are distracted for a year, it's going to take you more than a year to get out of it. It's not
Yeah,
like as simple as like, oh, I stopped using the phone and now I'm distraction free. It's not as simple. Like, it's like what they say, right? In the gym, it takes 6 months to build the muscle, but like only 1 month to lose it, right? So if you lose something, then it's going to take that much longer to gain it. So same thing with distraction, difficult problem to solve. I was in the Dubai metro yesterday, and the cabin was reasonably full. I was sitting and enjoying the view outside. Me and there were two other people. Only three people were not on the phone. The entire other 15 people, 16 people in that cabin, everybody were on the phone. And I was like, okay, I'm not like I'm not without my vices. Like I also look at the phone all the time, right?
yeah,
But at least in that moment, I found like, okay, I'll just enjoy the view outside. Even if it's just a concrete jungle, nothing special. I still found the time to just look outside and think about whatever, like, be engaged in my own thoughts instead of being engaged with the phone. And I figured like, hey, how difficult this could be. It turns out it's super difficult, like, to do it for a longer time. Anyway, so yeah, so that's the idea. Like the effects are long lasting, and it's harder to come out of the effect. Okay, I think there's a bunch of things to go. I know we are coming out of running out of time potentially. This one section now specifically applicable uh, towards software engineers, writers, uh, and knowledge workers, is that a core thesis of deep work is stretching your limits. If you're just doing focused work, that is technically not deep work by itself. You have to work at the edge of your ability, right? It's when you work at the edge of the ability, magic happens. Like if I had not worked on that deep query data migration, zero downtime data migration, I would have never developed some of those database and SQL skills, right? So the edge of the ability is, I think the key for everybody, like for managers, ICs, juniors, seniors. You have to work where you're a little bit just you're challenged just enough. If something is too hard, like if I start and sit down and write like an operating system today, that's not deep work because I have no idea how to do it at the moment. It's so
hmm.
far outside my capability that it'll take me about 6 months before it becomes closer to the edge of my ability. At that point, I can engage in deep focused work, right? So, but if I, let's say, start writing a build tool, which is well, like probably that's well within my capability too, but let's say a build tool that is ultra fast and whatnot, that's a little bit on the edge of my ability, maybe. then I can get into a deep work focus mode. So work at the edge of your ability. That means sometimes working on adjacent things, like pick something you haven't done, or like let's say if you've done Ruby all your life, go for Haskell, right? If you're like a front-end developer, understand how minification in the browser works, how source maps work. If you're like a back-end engineer, understand how deployments are done, how the rule set for, let's say, Jenkins works, etc. Like those kind of things.
Right.
Like write a compiler. If you're a designer, develop a new font. Like pick up like seminal open source work like Inter. Inter is an amazingly well designed font. Pick up Inter and maybe design your own typeface on top of Inter. Things like that, things that are possible, are hard, but not completely beyond you, right?
Right.
That's the secret. Like, you have to pick work that is just at the edge of your abilities, and it's surprisingly possible even in everyday work. There is no limit to how sophisticated you can be at your work. If you're writing a simple Jira ticket, or user story,
Hmm.
you could write it in whatever way you're used to writing it in 10 minutes, or you could take 10 more minutes and write a concise, clear draft that is like an outstanding piece of writing, like something that people will refer to as the shining example. Hey, this is how you should do things, right? There's nothing stopping you from doing stellar work in every little mundane thing you do,
Yeah.
right? And so you stretch that just a little bit when you're doing. That puts you again, like, this is a great antidote for the focus. It's like the anti-distraction, right? So wanting to do and doing stellar work at the edge of your ability is an antidote to distraction, right? And
Interesting.
then the being at the edge of ability is important because that allows you to get into that focus zone. If you don't know how to do something, then you're not going to be able to do the focus mode, right? You're going to keep searching for answers, references, and whatnot.
Right.
But like, let's say you're writing a one pager and you're trying to draft, and one great example for engineers is if you're writing something, trying to make the document look pretty, like aesthetically pleasing,
Hmm.
is a great at the edge activity for engineers. Let's say you have a resume, you can try this, Bhavin, like after today. Take your resume and give yourself like an hour, right? Put on your favorite music, whatnot, get in the focus zone, make your resume aesthetically pleasing, right? I'll challenge you for this. Like go and try it and see and tell me how you do. It doesn't have to be like a designer resume at the end, right? What I'm saying is where it is, from there to like an aesthetically like, imagine like your resume should be it should look like it was designed by Apple, right? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Apple they have a design bar that is,
Yeah. Gold
does
standard.
it visually, this is Apple, like when you look at it,
Yeah.
right? Something like that. So again, like the examples are all aimed toward this edge of ability thing. It's a critical part of deep work. Uh, and at work, what happens is it's really, really great to pick something adjacent to our skills, because that gives us more breadth in the career as well. So it's like a career aligning thing. If you're a backend engineer, learn DevOps, learn infrastructure.
Hmm.
Front-end engineer, learn like designing, Figma, prototyping, or learn like deployments, browsers, rendering, DOM, etc. Adjacent skills gives us the breadth, gives us the ability to work deeper, and opens up new work horizons as well. So pick adjacent skills and deepen work at those adjacent skills. MOOCs are great, and this is the point where I want to also make that side projects are just side projects. If you really are passionate about a side project, make it your main project for a week. Take 1 week off from work. Everybody has like, maybe 4 weeks of paid holiday. One of those paid holidays could be about this side project that you want to do. Do it for a week and then make it your main project for that week. You will make insane amount of progress, right? So that edge of ability thing, being immersed into something, a critical aspect of deep work. And I
You
think this is the
know,
part that, yeah,
many a times people trivialize this. I just want to amplify before you move on. Sorry, I'm interrupting you.
no,
But
no, go ahead.
many people might say side project, treat your side project as main project for 1 week. Like, what's the difference? It's the same, right? You're just splitting hairs here. But
Correct.
no, you're not. These little mental trickeries is what gets you ahead, because the challenge is not that task. The challenge is your brain. Your brain is
Correct.
preventing you from being productive, and the more you can comfort your brain and put it in the right shape. So these are little tricks and little baby steps to train it in the right direction. So it goes a
Correct.
long way.
One absolutely one outlier example is Neil Agarwal, Neil.fun, the website. Like the he puts up like marvelous pieces of creativity one after the other, right? Again, like show notes, like brilliant piece, and he has a full-time job, man. He does something else, but he also does these things. So what I'm saying is like it doesn't come by accident, right? You don't get intellectual creativity accidentally. You have to plan for it, work for it, and all. Of course, there's some level of serendipity involved and some luck involved, but the immersion is a highly underrated technique. Like you are fully immersed into it, then you're going to produce something nice. I guarantee you, there's enough evidence in the world that immersion really, really works. Writing is a great example. Like nothing brings out deep focus like writing, right? You start writing a draft, you get bogged into it, you get pulled into it, and next you spend 2 hours writing a article. Sometimes there have been times where I have forgotten to have food when I was writing in the middle of writing. Like last week, I was working on a draft for our engineering strategy for the next 3 months. I forgot to have lunch, and this is common with me. Like it happens to me all the time. Like I get so engrossed in work that I forget. There have been times where I forgot to brush my teeth. I woke up in the morning with a thought, started working, and now it's like 4 hours since I woke up and I forgot to brush.
Hmm.
It happens. That's an extreme example. But what I'm saying is this whole being engrossed and immersed in something that is at the edge of your ability, highly underrated technique. And writing is an easiest way to get there. It's basically writing is the most accessible form of deep work available to everybody,
Right.
even engineers, designer, anybody, right? And so investing in getting better at writing, again, amazing strategy. I think we spoke a little bit about don't fight biology, biological cycles. If you are a morning person, work in the morning, you don't fight like that whole thing about 5 a.m. waking up and all. I think there's a lot of rubbish to that. If you're a night person, then just accept and just be a night person. There's a lot of value in that. So I think let's skip the part where uh, the biology. Like generally, like my advice on biology was like sleep well, eat well and exercise a little bit. Add that into your routine because health plays a lot of role. By the way, the medical or the science behind deep work is that burns a lot of calories, and it's sort of if you're really in the zone, it's taxing on your body too. And not just one day. I'm not talking about one single day. I'm talking like doing it routinely, right? If you
Yeah.
do it routinely, you get in that mode, you burn a lot of calories, whatnot. It is taxing, and so you need to have in better health. Sometimes you just run out of energy. I've noticed this multiple times when I'm not in great shape. I just run out of energy to do like deep work, right? I'm like, okay, my brain is fried for the day and whatnot, right? And this day is like I'm talking about like 12 p.m. Not even like at 6 p.m. If you say my brain is fried, understandable. But
Right.
sometimes like you just get tired at 12 p.m. because you have not been managing your food and sleep and diet well. So my larger point is like you cannot fight biology, right? No body hack, nothing works. If you grew up eating a certain type of food, then eat that food, it's good for you. Uh, like uh, if let's say you grew up in Rajasthan and certain type of food in your family environment, it's going to be beneficial for you to continue eating that as your main diet.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can try other things and whatnot. But what I'm saying is, don't fight biology. Like, don't go out of it to I will work 16 hours a day for like this next 2 months. Not gonna happen. You're not gonna go into any kind of focus mode if you ignore biology like that, right?
Yeah.
It's a little bit stupid to try and fight that, to be honest. And so that was my last bit of strategy that hey, uh, you know, don't fight biology. Like sort those things in life if you really want to go attempt deep work. If you're doing two jobs and all, chances are that you can't do good at any of the jobs, for example. So that was all like that was on the whole rules and strategies. If you were to summarize it, like basically separate the deep and shallow, create clear boundaries, then focus on focus, like make a plan to be in focus work environment, set it up, plan all those things, and then make them happen. Then stretch your limits, work at the edge of your ability, and then finally don't fight biology. Right. So these are like the four high level strategies, and then we saw a bunch of smaller rules and tactics around those things.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think probably like anyway from a time perspective also we can probably stop here. The next section was basically about pitfalls and things like that.
Yeah, let's
Uh,
go into that. Let's cover the pitfalls, I would say,
got it.
if you're
Cool.
okay
So
with it.
one of yeah, I think there are two of them actually particularly interesting. One is going too far down the rabbit hole and losing the big picture. This happens a lot with deep work, that you get so into it that you just ignore everything else, right?
Mm.
Or like you go offshoot, like Wikipedia spelunking, one page after one page after one page, and you lost track of what you originally, and so like no outcomes, etc. And so that going too far down the rabbit hole is the real problem. Happens,
Right.
especially, and this is the problem not early in the cycle, it's a problem later in the cycle. You're not going to get into it, or perhaps in the beginning when you're not focused enough, it can happen. So that's one pitfall, and you've got to avoid that. How to avoid that? A bunch of things. For example, one thing, sorry, before we go into solutions, one symptom of going too far down the rabbit hole is abdicating responsibility for focus, right?
Hmm.
Like you have certain responsibilities towards like whatever, like at work, family, whatnot, and you abdicate those responsibilities in search of focus. It happens. Happened with me as well multiple times. I always end up sacrificing some of the other thing, in that search for the elusive focus. So that's a negative sign, and the moment that sign shows up, you need to take a pause and check. Or you become ineffective at collaboration sometimes. That's a real pitfall. And you are so drawn to the idea of focus that you forget to get those boundaries and uh, become ineffective at collaboration. This is a common pattern. Basically, the idea of the brilliant jerk is so uh, sort of it seduces you, right? Or it's selective. Oh, I'll be the
Yeah.
brilliant jerk who is so skilled that people will tolerate that person for whatever reasons. It's a selective idea. It's a terrible idea. Nobody likes to work with brilliant jerks, right?
Yeah.
And they don't get anything done as well. Like not unless they are exceptionally gifted. Like if you're Linus Torvalds, you build Git and you build Linux, people are willing to tolerate you for some reason. And even people did not tolerate Linus Torvalds as well.
Yeah.
Like, right? So if they can't tolerate Linus Torvalds, you are not as gifted as Linus Torvalds, I guarantee you. So
Yeah.
then
No, and
don't go
even
along.
him, he had to build the community. It's not him who is developing the kernel.
Right.
It's so many thousands of people who are actually committing and maintaining different parts. So that community had to be built. That's why Linux is where it is today.
Correct, right?
Uh,
Linux is not there because Torvald just was a lone warrior.
yeah.
He he actually took the effort. He had to take the effort to be inclusive, to open it up to a large body of developers, unlock the mass creativity and all that. And then that's why Linux runs the world. It's not an exaggeration to say that Linux runs the world. And
Absolutely.
same thing, right? So this whole I am not good at collaboration is complete bullshit, in my opinion, right? No amount of focused work gives you the excuse to be bad at collaboration,
Hmm.
right? So, but that's a real pitfall. It can happen in search of focus.
Right.
Ineffective communication, right? Just extension of collaborations, communication. It can happen. The other thing that can happen is like becoming a Jira ticket pusher. Like you have this, somebody's telling you what to do, and you get into a deep focus zone just to push Jira tickets from to do to done. You get into a habit of constantly doing what someone else is telling you to do. You lose agency. It's a very, very bad place to be in, and it's a real pitfall when it comes to like deep focused work. Right? You get so engrossed in basically that focus also becomes a little bit like lucrative, and you want that 4 hours of uninterrupted work. You will just do the work that is in front of you without really planning and looking at the larger picture, and without crafting a path for yourself, like having that agency, right? one key aspect of deep work is that individual agency where you are pursuing things that appeal to you, that broaden you, that deepen you. And so one easy pitfall is we just fall back on work to tell us what to do, and we end up becoming like a Jira ticket pusher. Not a great outcome. So people need to watch out for that. If that is happening, then the best thing to do is talk to peers, friends, whatnot, your trusted circle, who can then help you get out of it. Right. One leading indicator of that is, are you doing what someone else is telling you to do, or are you putting work on your own plate? And if you're doing what someone else is telling you to do, then you're on a slippery slope, then you need to quickly stop. Right. So
Right.
that's a pitfall. Needs to be avoided. The other pitfall, other category of pitfall is overestimating your deep work ability. Right? There's a point of diminishing return in deep work. Like you cannot meaningfully do more than 3-4 hours of work in a day, deep work in a day. It's just not humanly, biologically possible.
Yeah.
Right? And people have like, oh, I will have like 8 hours of focus time. I'll do this and whatnot. It's not possible. Like it's not like unless you're like a trained chess grandmaster or something, right? I mean, I know like Magnus Carlsen and Vishwanathan Anand, these people, they do like focus work for 7-8 hours in a day often, right? But they don't do it every day. They have like a few months of training where they do it. Right? So they're
Yeah.
and then their entire other lives are managed around it. They
Yeah.
have the food. And if Anand is doing like say 6 hours of focused work, he's sleeping like 12-14 hours on those days, right?
Wow.
He's eating like planned meals, stuff like that. So there's a whole ecosystem around, a support system around them to help them. And these are extreme cases, right? Like you and I are not Vishwanathan Anand. Like, we gotta identify our caliber at some level and say, hey, you know what, I'm not that, right?
Yeah.
And so, but anyway, let's say even if, like say, Bhavin, I don't speak for you. Like maybe you're talented, you're like Vishwanathan Anand. It'll take some time before you have that kind of support system to start doing those things. So these limits we need to identify, and the point of no return or point of diminishing return is something we need to identify. Right, that's one. Now the other key pitfall is missing out on leadership opportunities. Uh, Fundamentally speaking, the the deep work zone is a very high IC zone, right? Leadership is fairly interrupt driven, and it it deals with like 80% of shallow work, and there is obviously there is periods of focused work in leadership and running a business and whatnot, but it's technically not knowledge work, right? You're offloading the knowledge work to someone else, and you're managing a bunch of knowledge workers to deliver a business outcome in a leadership position. And doing long periods of deep work, years and years, can sometimes make you miss out on the leadership opportunities. Leadership is a great way to grow in the career, make like good financial outcomes for yourself and whatnot. And the pursuit of deep work can sometimes make you miss on out on those things. This is a pitfall. People have tried, because what happens is people think too highly of themselves. They think they'll become like the 0.1% in the world in something, they pursue it.
Yeah.
But in that pursuit, they don't go there, but they also miss out on some of the other opportunities that came their way,
Right.
right? So that happens sometimes. So this is where the caliber ambition matching needs to happen, and the presence of mentors is important in your life. So this is another pitfall. I mean, there is research that indicates that the kind of work that is conducive for deep work is often individual level. And
Mm.
so if you're that kind of person, then you may end up miss out on that leadership. So you gotta watch out. You gotta have people who watch your back for that. Right?
Right.
So yeah, so those are the 3-4 pitfalls: losing the big picture, losing out on collaborative and communicative aspects at work, trying out too much deep work and going in the diminishing return zone, and then finally missing out on leadership. These are like the 4 top pitfalls I think that people need to watch out for. In some ways, I've experienced these, all of them myself, and then in some ways, I've seen people experience these as well on their own. So yeah, so those are the top 4 pitfalls. Obviously, there could be more, but remember, like despite talking all of this, I think I want to bring everybody's focus back onto two things. One is that we want to quickly master hard things, right? Our goal has to be that master hard things fast. And then second is produce output at an elite level, right? In terms of both quality and speed. And if we set our goals to these two things, then a lot of things work out just in that process. So fundamentally, this whole deep work and being focused, work at the edge of ability is about mastering hard things and then producing output at an elite level. And as long as we are aligned on that goal, I think there's a chance that you and I can also continue doing this. And anybody who's listening can get on that path and continue doing this. Yeah, so that's the thesis. I'm always happy to talk more, discuss like on a more one-on-one level, should the need arise.
Right. Thank you for redelivering the talk around deep work that you have delivered in the past. People who have questions, feel free to comment down below the video on whichever platform you are seeing this, and me and Swanand will try and respond to it. And we can have more.
Additionally, like yeah, I'm always active on like Twitter. Ping me anytime. I'm like I said, like I always like talking about these things.
Cool. Awesome.
Great,
It was yeah. It was great having you here, Swanand. Thank you for taking out the
Thanks
time.
for inviting me. I had a great time. I think I liked how the conversation sort of flew naturally, and the couple of points that you added all throughout, like I think they were pretty good. That speaks to me like you have experienced some of this yourself,
Yeah.
and I could sense that yeah. So that's great. Always nice to talk to somebody who has done this kind of work before. So awesome. Thanks.
Awesome. Great.